Welcome to the Tech Ed Podcast, where we visit with leaders who are shaping, innovating, and disrupting technical education. People who are not afraid to think differently, not afraid to try something new, all with the goal of securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Today's guest serves as president and CEO of an organization that bills itself as the largest and most influential business association in the state of Wisconsin, working to make Wisconsin the best place in the nation to do business. It is the state of Wisconsin's Chamber of Commerce, the state's Manufacturers Association, and the state's Safety Council all in one. This organization was recognized just last year as the State Chamber of the Year for its advocacy, information, delivery, and general support of Wisconsin businesses during COVID-19. My name is Matt Kirkner. I am your host of the Tech Ed Podcast. Kurt Bauer, President and CEO of Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce. It's fantastic to have you on the Tech Ed Podcast.
Well, it's an honor for me as well, Matt. Thanks.
Now, the WMC, as we mentioned, Kurt, proclaims part of its purpose is to make Wisconsin the best place in the nation to do business. What are the keys to accomplishing a goal this big?
Our unofficial goal would be to solve Wisconsin's economic challenges, both present and future, which I think is important because we find ourselves involved in pretty much any business or economic issue that comes up in the state. What we're looking for is a strong and stable business climate. By stable, I mean that one that doesn't vacillate widely from gubernatorial administration to the next. That's important to us. We often talk about the holy trinity of taxes, regulation, and legal environment. We want all of them to be competitive. We take the approach that we work at electing the right officials at the state level. We, for 110 years, have gotten involved in campaigns to make sure that pro-business candidates have the resources. And then, of course, we lobby them when they come to Madison for the legislative session. We also increasingly are involved in litigation. We recently created the WMC Litigation Center, and that was a hole in our advocacy. So we work to elect the right folks. We lobby them when they come to Madison. But increasingly, we need to hold government accountable by, frankly, suing them to follow the law. We're expected as businesses to follow the law. We expect government to follow the law. So increasingly, that's an important aspect of our advocacy for the business community.
Now, you began that last answer by talking about the importance of not vacillating in your approach. That's important, but probably also challenging sometimes given the lack of bipartisan legislation here in the state of Wisconsin and the lack of bipartisan approach to legislation. What can the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce do to advance the interest of your members through the legislative process?
We certainly have played more defense with the Evers administration than we did with the Walker administration, but we have been able to get a few things done. Importantly, during this legislative session, we had two major legislative priorities, and that is getting COVID-19 liability protections for businesses and codifying the fact that the payroll protection program at the federal level was not subject to state taxation. We were able to get both of those passed. They passed on a bipartisan basis, and the governor signed them into law. So from our perspective, lobbying is sales. You've got to have a strong public relations arm. You've got to be aggressive on traditional and social media. We've got our own video studio. We use podcasts. We used to have a magazine. We suspended it with COVID-19. Would like to bring it back at some point, but that was another mechanism for us to tell our story and make our case. We use all of the above in order to try and convince lawmakers that when the economy is doing well because of the private sector businesses that dominate it, and that it's in their best interest to help us address the key issues that they have.
So when the economy is doing well, it's because in many cases of the approach of private businesses. And a strong economy is important. A strong economy, of course, as we all know, means employment. It means growth. It means opportunities for the people here in the state of Wisconsin. Now, most would argue we have a relatively strong economy now, certainly in the wake of COVID. But even given that, the latest data from the Department of Workforce Development shows that we have over 131,000 unemployed individuals here in the state of Wisconsin. And yet all of the time we hear employers talk about the fact that they can't find people to fill open positions. What do you think, Kurt, is causing this discrepancy, and what should we be doing about it?
As it relates to the 131,000 people who are looking for work, we have jobs for those individuals. You might need to retrain, you might need to relocate, but the bottom line is that Wisconsin clearly has far more jobs than we have people to fill them. This is a long-term issue for us. It was our biggest issue prior to COVID-19. It has now become an emergency because of the compounding impact of bad policy from the American Rescue Plan. Continuing the 300 per week unemployment insurance supplemental from the federal government has really made things rough, particularly I think in hospitality and leisure as we're now in the tourist season. I mean, you can't go by a restaurant without them, having a help wanted or now hiring. Many of them are adjusting hours. Some of them have had to close. So it's really putting a stress on an already bad situation. But this is a long-term issue for us. It's a demographic issue. Since the late 1990s, we've had below replacement birth rates in Wisconsin, compounded by the fact that we've had more out-migration than in-migration. So it's just a math problem. We are a baby boomer dominated workforce. They are at or reaching retirement age. We don't have enough Gen Xers or millennials coming up behind them. So this is a real problem for Wisconsin because most economists will tell you that if you don't have working age population growth, you're not going to have GDP growth. And we're not looking to have growth in working age population through mid-century in our state. So this is going to have an impact far beyond the economy. This is going to affect tax revenue. This is going to affect K-12 and enrollment in our technical colleges and our other universities and colleges. This is going to have a profound impact on our state. And it's something that WMC has been talking about. I've been here for 10 years. We've been talking about it for at least 8, maybe even a little bit longer than that.
So it's a problem that many of us knew were coming. It is a simple math problem. It is a simple problem of demographics. And now here we are with these opportunities to grow our economy. Many people unemployed here in our state and looking for ways to connect those individuals with jobs. You mentioned the importance of upskilling. In the beginning of your last answer, you talked about the fact that we have plenty of jobs for the people that need them. We just may need to upskill them. I want to talk about this whole topic, Kurt, about upskilling the workforce. Now, companies, large companies like S.C. Johnson, Ashley Furniture, these are companies that have made significant investments in worker development and training programs at their own workplaces, many times using cutting edge technology, offering industry recognized credentials as just one example through the Smart Automation Certification Alliances. Now, when we think about small to mid-size businesses, many of them may not be aware of all these opportunities. Are there training resources being used by small and mid-sized businesses to upskill their incumbent workers? And what can we do to bring attention to these resources?
It is harder for smaller and medium-sized manufacturers. They don't have the resources. Frankly, oftentimes they don't have the time. Whenever I call a small or medium-sized manufacturing CEO, he or she is almost never in their office. They're on the plant floor trying to solve a problem. So this is a bigger challenge, I think, for them than it is for the bigger companies. But the bottom line is that you just need to follow some of the key best practices. So you need to have a relationship with your K-12 tech ed. You need to have a relationship with your technical college. More and more of them need to have internships available. We do something called Manufacturing Month in October. This was designed to showcase manufacturing careers and have manufacturers show off what they make in those industrial parks that many times don't have any windows and nobody knows what's going on in there. And that's a problem for manufacturers. They need to get people to see what's going on in there. They need to see that manufacturing is, high tech, high skill, high pay. It's not dumb, dirty, and dangerous. We need to get people in those facilities. They need to have open houses. They need to have plant tours, particularly grade school and middle school. We often focus there as opposed to high school because so many of those kids have already decided what the career path is going to be. We also do something called the Coolest Thing Made in Wisconsin, which has been very popular for us. And again, that's designed to be a fun social media contest designed to showcase all the things that are made in Wisconsin and hopefully open people's minds. Manufacturing is by far the largest sector in the state, 20% of state GDP. About 480,000 Wisconsinites worked in manufacturing pre-COVID. It really is the super sector of the Wisconsin economy, and it would behoove us to do a lot more to try and work with small and medium-sized companies to make sure that young people are being exposed to the career options that exist in manufacturing. They're not just jobs, they're career options. There's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of chance for upward mobility. And frankly, those skill sets that you talked about are very portable. So if it works in Wisconsin, it's going to work all around the world.
Exactly. So very portable skill sets when we talk about competencies in manufacturing. And now with the advent of Industry 4.0, many of those competencies will cross over and port over to even other sectors. I believe you're exactly right. As we inspire our young people toward careers in advanced manufacturing, toward careers in other STEM fields, those opportunities they can take to literally any sector, any corner of the economy if they wish, providing just tremendous numbers of opportunities for those young people. That's important. It's also important that we provide opportunities for people who are already in the workforce, right? If we turn the clock forward 5, 10, 15 years, many of the people who will be working in manufacturing then are already working in manufacturing today. So in addition to the initiatives you discussed in terms of making sure we're focusing on our young people in the state of Wisconsin, our incumbent worker training is really important as well. Now, I know the Wisconsin Fast Forward Grant Program provides funding to employers who are looking to upskill their workforces. Now, has it been successful so far, Kurt?
I think it has been successful. I think that there's a little bit too much bureaucracy for it. Again, larger companies can manage that bureaucracy. They tend to have the staffing to help them. Smaller and medium sized don't always know how to navigate that. We can help at WMC. We've got a staff that knows it well. One thing that we have been asked recently by some of our members is to see if we can extend fast forward grants for workplace training, because a lot of our members train people on the job and they would like to be eligible for the credits there. So that is something that we're working on right now. It is interesting. We have the resources in Wisconsin. We've got the fast forward grants. We've got a great technical college system, arguably the best in the country, 16 technical colleges with 49 locations at least. So basically you can't throw a ball in any direction and not hit one. So we have tremendous resources in this state to make sure that people are trained up. Our bigger problem is getting people motivated to go into manufacturing, because I think that they have some stigma attached to it, that they see it as something, the old assembly lines from the 1950s, and they don't recognize that manufacturing today is the industrial age meets the information age. It's very high tech.
So let's talk a little bit about motivating people to get into manufacturing. One way we can build a skilled workforce is by training students in K-12 and exposing them to these career pathways. That's the number one influencer of a young person's career decision, is exposure during middle school and high school. Now, part of your agenda at the WMC talks about career planning and points to the Academic and Career Planning Initiative in the state of Wisconsin. Do you think ACP is working, in your words, to motivate people to get excited about careers such as those in manufacturing? And what can we do to improve it?
I think it's heading in the right direction. It's probably too soon to give it a grade. It's the right thing to do. You're absolutely right. We need to expose young people to the diversity of jobs we have in Wisconsin, whether it's in manufacturing or the other sectors that we have. I think we do a poor job of that. We really do focus at K-12 on college prep for the majority of our kids. And 70% of the jobs in Wisconsin don't require a 4-year degree. Now, they do require some post-secondary training of some sort, but not all of them need to go to a 4-year university. And I'm not, I'm a product of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. That was the right career choice for me, but it's not for everyone. And I think we need to recognize that. So I think exposure to the careers out there is absolutely critical for the future of our state, and frankly, for the happiness of young people making the right decisions. They need to understand what jobs we have, what they pay, and what type of training they need in order to pursue those types of careers. We're not doing a particularly good job of that right now, but I do think that the ACP is heading in the right direction. I think it's creating greater flexibility. I think the key is teachers, career counselors, and of course, parents supporting children as they make decisions. We often say, if you watch any of the ads for the U.S. Armed Forces, they typically don't sell the kid, they're selling the parent. And that's a problem that we have as well, because a lot of parents will steer their kids towards a 4-year degree when perhaps the aptitude or interest isn't there. And there is tremendous need out there for skilled labor that doesn't require a 4-year degree. So you don't have to incur the same level of costs. You're not out of the workforce as long, and the return on investment can be incredibly high. And to that point, I think we also need to change our perception of what entrepreneurship is. I think a lot of people think of entrepreneurship as the guy at the coffee shop with the laptop with the stickers on the back, working on something in tech. The reality is that you can be an entrepreneur by becoming a plumber and moving into a town that is underserved right now. And there's tremendous need for people with those types of skill sets. So I think we need to just change and get rid of stigmas and broaden people's horizons on what the future should look like as far as careers.
Absolutely. And I think many wouldn't necessarily think of a role as a plumber being an entrepreneur, but boy, you talk to some of those folks. I have a cousin, as a matter of fact, who had a career as a plumber, is about my age and has been retired for 5 years. Exactly what he did. He was an entrepreneur. He created a great life for himself and for his family. It's just incredible, the opportunities that people may not be open to, in part because, as you suggest, they're not hearing about them from people like career counselors, from their parents, from their friends, from other people that they're getting career advice from. Speaking of being a plumber or so many other endeavors where we can follow an apprenticeship model toward that type of a career, Wisconsin is known for leading the nation in registered youth apprenticeships. What should we be doing to involve more students in these types of programs?
You're absolutely right. We have the oldest apprenticeship program in the United States, built on the German model, which makes sense. We're such an ethnically German state. My last name, Bauer, of course, dramatic. We did lose a lot of momentum on our apprenticeship program, moving from the Thompson administration to the Doyle administration. And I don't know that we've regained that momentum to the extent that we should. We're working on it. WMC is very involved in it. I think it's a great program, and it covers such a range of options. It's not just manufacturing, it's agriculture, it's health science, it's finance, it's mechanical engineering. There are a variety of different options available. It's a great way to train people up. And again, it's less expensive, and people are out of the workforce for a shorter period of time. They spend more time earning than they do receiving some sort of credential that keeps them out of the workforce longer. I do think that we're heading in the right direction on apprenticeships.
Proud to say, by the way, that Governor Thompson, now interim president of the UW system, also a member of the Tech Ed Podcast Alumni Circle. And when we visited with Governor Thompson a few weeks ago, he talked extensively about the value of private employers partnering with, in his case, the university system, but with educators in general. With the WMC's education agenda, you advocate for these types of partnerships with local employers to provide job opportunities, real world work experience for students. And you even state that schools should be incentivized to do this. What forms should those incentives take?
Well, funding, because that's what gets their attention more than anything else. But they should be rewarded for this because, again, we want to make sure that K-12 is exposing young people to all of those career options. Some districts do it better than others. When I was at Beloit Memorial High School, I met with my counselor precisely once because, frankly, that counselor focused too much on disciplinary action. We need to make sure that we actually have kids that are focused. By the way, I should clarify, I didn't meet with them for disciplinary.
I was going to say, is that why I had to meet with mine every month? I don't.
But yeah, the point is that we need to make sure that career counselors are actually focusing on careers and meeting with young people about what their aptitude is, what their interest is, and helping them work with their parents to make the right choice. So the parents have to be part of this because the parents have to have buy-in. Sometimes the parents will be the ones that will discourage a kid from pursuing a career that they were looking into. And the last thing you want somebody to do is choose a 4-year college and then drop out. So they incur the debt. They were out of the workforce and they don't have the credential. That's what we don't want. So we want kids making the right choice early on. We value the partnership with K-12. We need to work with them even more closely going forward because from our perspective, going back to the conversation we said about demographics, we need to make sure that we're retaining as much born and raised Wisconsin talent as we possibly can. We don't want kids going someplace else to pursue a career if they have that opportunity to pursue it here in Wisconsin, and they just may not know what their options are.
Without question, and keeping those students in our own backyards, showing them the world, certainly, as my friend Mike Bigley from Whitehall School District tells me, but showing them what's here as well. And we want students that understand the global economy. We want them to understand that they live and work in a global economy, but we want to show them what is in the state of Wisconsin, give them reasons to stay here. And one of those reasons certainly can be understanding the great career opportunities that are available to them.
One of the things that we really encourage, and one of the things that the technical colleges do very well, is that for every certificate area or degree area, they've got an advisory board, practitioners in that area. The K-12 should adopt that as well. Some do, but frankly, more broadly, they should be communicating with the businesses in their area to find out what they're going to be needing in 4 or 5 years as far as skill levels. And then, of course, there has to be that partnership. For example, Aaron's in Brillion, they donate machines from their factory floor both to the high school and to the technical college. So those kids are actually training on those machines and they create a pipeline. That's a best practice. And it starts with communication.
Exactly. And I should mention that when we had Dan Ahrens on the Tech Ed podcast, we actually talked quite extensively about his partnership with his local school district in Brillion, Wisconsin, and with other surrounding school districts. that is certainly an employer that gets it, understands the value of building those rock solid relationships with educators at every level. How do we incentivize other employers to get more involved in their local school districts?
Their perspective, their future workforce depends on them reaching out because they can no longer expect somebody to walk in the door looking for work the way you could have perhaps 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Those days are gone because the demographic challenge that we face is going to continue, as I mentioned, through mid-century. So the manufacturers who are going to survive are going to have to create their own pipeline, which is a challenge, again, for smaller and medium-sized manufacturers because they oftentimes don't have the time they think to do it. But frankly, the future of their enterprise depends on them reaching out to K-12 and technical colleges and creating that pipeline. If they don't do it, their future isn't as bright as the ones that will.
Now let's talk about in creating that pipeline that you just mentioned, Kurt, the importance of dual enrollment opportunities. For our listeners who may not be familiar, that is a high school student who is contemporaneously earning credit toward a high school degree and perhaps a technical college degree, perhaps a four-year degree. I know that Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce very, very highly advocates dual enrollment opportunities for students. What are the bigger hurdles you think to creating those dual enrollment programs and how do we overcome them?
Well, first, let me say firsthand what a great program it is because I had a chance a few years ago to be the commencement speaker at the Waukesha County Technical College, and I got a chance to meet some of the kids who were receiving their high school diploma and their technical college diploma in the same month. I mean, that is head and shoulders above everyone else. What a great opportunity for them. And we need more information. Young people need to be exposed to this. When I was at Beloit Memorial High School, there were Porter Scholars that went to Beloit College part of the day. There was a prestige factor with that. We need there to be a similar prestige factor associated with dual enrollment at the technical college system because, again, we have a fantastic technical college system in Wisconsin. We need to utilize it. We need to promote it. We need young people to know that that is a resource available for them. Frankly, we need more flexibility in K-12 so that their schedule is clear so that they can attend classes at the technical college. But the bottom line is that we need to do a better job of explaining to young people what options are available because Wisconsin has tremendous opportunities for them. And the word isn't getting out to the extent that it should. And that's a challenge for industry, but it's also a challenge for academia.
So great opportunities for our young people to work in a culture and an environment that attracts skilled talent. I want to turn now in our discussion toward investing in the future of our workforce. Now, Kurt, you work with manufacturers all across the state, small, medium-sized businesses, our larger employers as well. As you look at companies that are getting it right, what are they doing to foster that culture and environment that makes a young, fresh mind want to come and work in that organization and also retains them for a longer period of their career to be able to derive the benefits from that employee?
I think more than anything, we need to get young people, the next generation, in manufacturing facilities. They need to see how high tech they are, how clean they are, how dynamic they are. I get to do this for a living. I tour and I see the robotics and I see the blueprint and then the finished product and how rewarding that is. Now, my father, both my grandfathers all worked in manufacturing. I had a chance to be a forklift operator in a manufacturing facility. But when my dad would design a machine, they would have an open house and he'd drag me down to Rockford, Illinois and make me go take a look at it. There was a level of pride that I didn't understand until I took this job that he exhibited because he helped design that machine. And that machine was going to be shipped out around the world and help manufacture X, Y, or Z. That's a level of pride that I don't think that a lot of people get from their career. And you can get that in manufacturing. And showing off the robotics, we need kids to be in the cutting edge globally as far as robotics, because going back to the workforce issue, robotics are going to become increasingly more important in order for us to be a leader in manufacturing that we need to be, not only for our economic, but for our national security.
It's just fascinating to see these students interacting with that technology, isn't it, Kurt? Especially in this era, as you suggest, that manufacturing technology is changing at warp speed. And it's amazing how automated our manufacturing facilities are becoming in this world of Industry 4.0. One of the observations that I have made, Kurt, is that when we talk to larger companies in the state of Wisconsin, larger companies in the Midwest, companies with names like those we've already mentioned, Ashley, SC Johnson, Kohler Company, Aaron's, these larger companies are making significant investments in smart technology, Industry 4.0, robotics, automation. They understand how this technology is going to revolutionize the world in which they do business. I can also tell you anecdotally that a lot of small and medium-sized businesses don't necessarily see the train coming down the track just yet. Some of them do, but many of them don't. And I worry, as somebody who made my living in manufacturing for 20 some years, that if they don't get on the ball and understand the opportunity to add this technology to the manufacturing operations, they may be left behind. So as you look at your role as CEO of the state's Chamber of Commerce, what do you think we need to do to bring attention to the issue and make smaller manufacturers know the tools that they need, give them the tools they need to compete in this world of rapidly advancing manufacturing technology?
I think that they do get it pretty well. I think that more than anything, the workforce shortage has kind of steered them in that direction just to automate. Although, as you well know, automating doesn't necessarily solve your workforce problem. Sometimes it compounds it because you need a higher skill for maintenance and programming. But when I talk to manufacturers, they are making those investments, they're making those leaps. There are concerns, of course. There's investment costs, capital costs. Those costs are dropping as the technology improves, the training time. The other aspect of this that can't be overstated is the cyber threats. So with Industry 4.0, you're also making yourself more vulnerable to ransomware, which of course we've heard about recently. So that's an increasing threat out there that they need to be aware of. And they need to make sure that as they pursue Industry 4.0, they also need to make sure that they are mitigating for the cyber threat out there to protect their IP and, of course, to protect them from ransomware. We're hearing increasingly that ransomware attacks are becoming a real challenge for manufacturers in particular.
And I think just news and recent events, both locally and across the country, point to the fact that you can be a large organization and still be at risk of a ransomware attack, still be at risk of not having cybersecurity at the level that it needs to be. And even organizations that do are still at risk. So that importance of investing in cybersecurity, investing in Industry 4.0 technology, and making sure that technology is secure, really important for the future of manufacturing. Now, part of that investment also includes research in both technology and in highly skilled talent. The R&D tax credit incentives in the state of Wisconsin create incentives for employers to invest in these types of endeavors. Are there WMC members to whom you can point that are innovating in ways that our audience might find interesting using the R&D tax credit or otherwise?
Well, I could spend at least an hour on this, but I'll give you two examples. Mercury Marine and Oshkosh Corporation, both of which are signature Wisconsin companies that everybody recognizes those names. They employ hundreds of engineers in the state of Wisconsin. Those are high-paying jobs, and the ripple effect to our economy is huge. So we want to make sure that we incentivize R&D here in the state of Wisconsin. Mercury just recently developed their noise, vibration, harshness technical center to limit vibrations of their engines. That led to the development of their latest state-of-the-art engine for the next generation. So that's a great success story right there. Oshkosh is in development of electric vehicles. Pierce, their fire apparatus subsidiary, just delivered their first electronic fire truck to the Madison Fire Department. They're producing other electric vehicles, cement mixers, and of course, military vehicles. So those are two huge success stories with R&D tax credit.
Absolutely excellent examples of organizations, and we all know them very well, certainly Oshkosh Corporation and Mercury Marine, great iconic Wisconsin companies that are investing in their future, investing in the future of their technology, investing in the future of their organizations, which I know is in so many ways what Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce is all about. Kurt Bauer, President and CEO of that organization, it has been a pleasure talking with you today. We really, really enjoyed the conversation, really appreciate the fact that you joined us on the Tech Ed podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Tech Ed podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave a review, and if you liked this episode, share it with a friend. New episodes launch every Tuesday, so listen in next week.